Music is all fun and games until someone gets a copyright lawsuit. Let's take a step back and look at a brief history on copyright law. The concept of copyright was originally introduced to the U.S. with the Copyright Act of 1790 to protect products like books and maps. But how is copyright applied to music? Music printing in the U.S. had only started in 1770, and 30 years later, more than 10,000 songs were printed by U.S. music publishers. Then, jumping ahead another 30 years, the concept of copyrighting music was introduced to U.S. legislation. The keen impact copywriting had on the value of music publishing wasn't really noticed until 1893, when this song sold millions of copies of sheet music. This led to a significant amount of people moving to New York City in the 1900s to become music publishers.
Music publishers are absolutely where it should be.
It wasn't until the mid to late 20th century copyright laws were extended to fair use and life of copyright, which means certain works of art are protected during the artist's lifetime, with an extension of 70 years after they die. We're not saying that it's completely downhill from here, but the public has very limited amount of access to fair use material. And it's understandable that copyright is a critical part of successful entertainment from an economic standpoint. But economics seems like such a minor problem when viewed from an ethical standpoint. Music copyright has caused such an outbreak of controversies, and it raises so many ethical questions. Has this matter been blown out of proportion? Why is music copyright such a big deal? Should copyright laws inhibit the recreation of artwork? Why is music copyright laws such a big deal? The recreation of art? But the biggest question we have is, should there be such an intense concern about copyright issues in the music industry in regards to sampling, unlimited streaming, and piracy? There are two main types of ethical views involved in music copyright controversies. These ethical views, to be explained, are the theory of communitarian ethics and Bentham's theory of utility ethics.
In regards to communitarian ethics, music copyright laws have a way of focusing on the self instead of community interests, the self being those owning rights over their particular music.
But I think once it happened to Biz, it really took off.
The Biz Marquee sampling case was a case that was brought by a man named Gilbert O'Sullivan, who had a hit song in the 70s called Alone Again Naturally.
Alone again, naturally.
And it was very ubiquitous. It was a sample, you really could hear the song. It was over and over again looped.
Naturally.
So he decides he's going to make an example of this kid and files this huge lawsuit.
I'm alone again, naturally. All alone again, naturally.
And the judge pronounced it biblically incorrect.
While the enjoyment of music itself is not autonomous, copyright, by way of existing, claims that the use of musical property explicitly belongs to its creator. So then, where do issues in modern times such as remixing, song covers, and free streaming fit into an ideal community when copyright obstructs these mediums? We would claim it doesn't. Within the restrictive laws of copyright, there is no room for experimentation and growth of community. President Thomas Jefferson, quoted in Lawrence Lessing's book Remix, puts this idea of copyright into context in saying, "If nature has made any one thing less acceptable than all others of exclusive property, it is the action of the thinking power called an idea, which an individual may exclusively possess as long as he keeps it to himself. But the moment it is divulged, it forces itself into the possession of everyone, and the receiver cannot dispossess himself of it. Its peculiar character, too, is that no one possesses the less, because every other possesses the whole of it. He who receives an idea from me receives instruction himself without lessening mine, as he who lights his taper at mine receives light without darkening me." What Jefferson was getting at stems back to the root of copyright issues. Man often feels as though his ideas have lesser value when another person has a similar thought. This then creates the feeling that one's unique thoughts and actions can be copied, which of course no one likes. But Jefferson argues that one's ideas are not dim because someone else has a similar aha moment, but enhanced for future creations. So while from other ethical standpoints, it is moral to bestow ownership over a particular creation, copyright, as used today, does not necessarily promote the interest of community over the self. It has become so restrictive and complicated that it tends to punish rather than protect. For instance, according to USA Today, Taylor Swift, among other artists, has gained attention for copywriting the phrase, "this sick beat," in addition to removing all of her albums from Spotify completely. Yep, this is true. Yet happenings like this aren't uncommon in today's media industry and actually have increased over the past decade. Therefore, our question for artists such as Taylor Swift is,
The second ethical viewpoint we would like to apply for music copyright controversy is utilitarian ethics. The principle of utility, founded by Jeremy Bentham, is defined as that principle which approves or disapproves of every action whatsoever, according to the tendency which it appears to have to augment or diminish the happiness of the party whose interest is in question. This essentially means that actions or behaviors are right so long as they give happiness or pleasure to as many people as possible, and wrong if they produce unhappiness or pain. Because the music industry is, at base, centered around making its creators and consumers happy, utilitarian ethics is a well-fitted lens to observe this issue through. So, how does copyright fit into everyone being happy? At first glance, copyright is just a big collection of confusing rules that give certain artists monopoly on a product and all the money garnished from it. But that's really only a side effect of copyright's intended purposes. As shown by Steve Collins in his article for Media and Communication Journal, copyright was established with society as the primary beneficiary for the free expression incentivized by copyright. The overall social good is served by the progress of science and the useful arts. The progress of science is served by the encouragement of authors. The encouragement of authors is secured by providing them with the incentive of legally secured monopoly profits for the sale and circulation of their works over a limited period of time. If we consider societal progress and payment for creators as being equivalent to happiness or pleasure, utilitarian ethics would agree with this structure. Yet, if copyright regulation actually worked like this, there wouldn't be much of a controversy surrounding it. Certain checks and balances, namely copyright's finite duration and fair use laws, are supposed to keep copyright holders under control and allow more freedom and happiness for others who wish to use or transform these works. But every day there are new cases of artists remixing or sampling under jurisdiction of fair use, which are overturned. Recently, copyright control has gone even further than before in regards to restricting artists building on top of one another. Consider the controversy surrounding 2013 song Blurred Lines between Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams and Marvin Gaye's children, who publicly accused the songwriters of copying their father's 1977 hit Got to Give It Up. Disregarding the misogynistic themes in Blurred Lines, Thicke and Williams defended the song as an homage with notably different key signatures, melodies, and chord progressions. The only similarity was in the song's feel, but this was apparently enough of a copyright infringement to warrant damage payments of $7.3 million. Yet, even this amount of money means nothing compared to the verdict that something like the feeling of a song could be copyrighted and restricted. Continued application of such stringent regulation effectively stifles the building upon and societal progress that copyright is supposed to encourage. Yet, when copyright is used against artists who reference or sample songs under the protection of fair use, they are suppressing happiness to be gained from potential new music. This means that the happiness such copyright laws are meant to foster the encouragement of music is actually taken away by the strictness of these same laws, causing more pain than pleasure and becoming immoral by the standard of utilitarian ethics. As supported by Bentham's principle of utility, copyright laws should be more focused on allowing creative content and less with restricting it, thus spreading more happiness for more individuals. Now that you've seen how controversial music copyright can be from an ethical standpoint, what do you think? Is it acceptable to create new media by building upon pre-existing media? If it's acceptable in cases with other forms of art like paintings, then why wouldn't it be acceptable in the music industry? Look at Andy Warhol, for example. In 1960, Warhol took the image of Campbell's soup can and created it into this masterpiece. An easy solution to all of this nonsense would be to expand the fair use policy so that copyright can be more approachable to the general public. Less restrictive copyright laws would create more of an accepting sense of community. Making sure copyright laws are enforced is naturally important to the music artists and anyone in the music industry. But should this topic receive as much attention as it has been given? Another solution would be for us to all look at the bigger picture in life, and then we would be able to see that issues with copyright are not that important compared to more serious matters in the world. On June 3, 1992, Crystal Cartier filed a $40 million lawsuit on Michael Jackson, who was accused of completely plagiarizing her song Dangerous. This caused a huge controversy not only in the music industry, but with the general public as well. When court ended up siding with Jackson on this case, he moonwalked out of the courtroom while flipping Cartier off in the process. This court case had extensive coverage by the media, was constantly talked about, and even won an award for Best Tabloid Trial. The same week that Cartier first filed against Jackson and the media picked up the story, there was a terrible house fire in Philadelphia where allegedly 8 to 11 people were severely injured and 2 women were killed, as well as the brutal passing of a 5-year-old girl, all due to the fire being deliberately set off by a member of that apartment complex. An article from the Philadelphia Inquirer also notes that all 39 families who lived in the building were left homeless. How do you think the media coverage reacted to this tragic incident? Very little light was shed upon the house fire situation, and it was soon brushed under the carpet and forgotten about. The point we're trying to make is that if copyright wasn't an issue, maybe more attention would be given to more serious matters. So again, this brings us to our concluding question. Should there be such a concern about copyright within the music industry?